Yoo-hoo. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to Relationship Struggles. It's going to be so fun. So happy to be here today. Go ahead. Welcome, everybody. We're going to give it just a couple minutes while Zoom pulls everybody in. I'll change my name here. Can you guys hear me okay? Give me a thumbs up so I know that you can hear me. There we go. All right. Perfect. Okay. My name is Heather Flake. I'm here on behalf of Life Coach University. And Life Coach University has a mission of getting coaching to millions more. So if you go to lifecoachuniversity.com, you will see lots of different coaches offering lots of different classes on many different topics. So at any time, you can just go to lifecoachuniversity.com, join a coach's PIF talk for free, and learn how to up level and improve your life. Well, sorry, my battery pack is blinking at me. So I'm going to go ahead and change these really quick. I thought this might happen. So give me a second. Let me change this over. Gotcha. Perfect. Okay, there we go. All right. So like I said, we are here to just get coaching to as many people as we possibly can. And we just work on a pay it forward platform. So as you attend these different PIF talks, we just invite you to pay it forward in the world in whatever way that you see fit. But we're so glad that you are here today. Thanks for joining me. If you will look on the bottom of your screen, you'll see two little bubbles entitled Q&A. So at any point today, if you have a question or a comment or you want to participate in the discussion, go ahead and put it in the Q&A. You aren't on screen. No one can see you. No one can hear you. Nobody's going to know. Like, other people in here can't see your questions is what I'm trying to tell you. So super private, super confidential. Don't be afraid of that. And you can put anything in the Q&A at any point and I will just take care of you. So without further ado, let's do this thing. Okay, so today we're talking about relationship struggles. And like I mentioned at the beginning, I'm a coach and I mainly work with women in their marriages. So some people think I'm a couples coach and I'm not. I just help the woman who is married that is like, yo, this is not what I thought it was going to be. This is really challenging. A lot of times, nothing. Every time we're in a relationship, we have expectations. We think it's going to go a certain way, and usually it does not go that way at all. And so I help clients to kind of make peace and to build and create a more peaceful and connected and joyful relationship. So that's what I do. So I'll definitely be talking about marriage today, but I want you to feel like you can bring any relationship that is hard for you to this call. So it doesn't have to necessarily be a marriage relationship. So maybe it's with your toddler or with an employer or an employee or a cousin or a mother-in-law or a mom, whoever it is, what I'm talking about and what we are sharing today is going to apply. Okay, it looks like someone is raising their hand. On this call, I don't bring you on screen. So if you have a question or you want some coaching, go ahead and type it in the Q&A box and I will totally take care of you. Okay? All right. Okay, so while we're getting started here, I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear, what are some of your struggles in your relationships? What brought you to this call? How is it that you struggle? So when I was planning this the other day and I was thinking about it and I was thinking about what are my struggles? And again, some of these struggles are in my marriage. Some of these struggles are just like blanket struggles. One of them being communication. Sometimes I just feel like, dude, you're not hearing me, whether that's my husband or it's my 5-year-old or it's a 60-year-old person, right? Sometimes communication can just be a huge struggle in and of itself. I think oftentimes I hear this from my clients, and sometimes I get into a space where I totally feel like this, where in my marriage it's just like, oh, we're roommates. We are literally just two people that all we do is figure out logistics. Who's going to take who to this place? Who's going to make the dinner? who's taking care of this thing that's happening, right? It can just feel like, okay, we're just roommates. We're just figuring out logistics all the time. And it can be easy to lose sight of connection and romance and fun and humor and laughter and all those good things that we love in a relationship. But all of that is common. Nothing's wrong with you. So I would love to hear from y'all. What are some of the struggles that and maybe it's recurring, right? I have that all the time where I just feel like, oh my gosh, I've been working on this for years and it's still popping up, right? So a lot of the times the struggles that we have are just like on loop. They're just recurring struggles. So today, my hope, and here's the thing, I am not giving this class because I am perfect at relationships. In fact, it's the opposite. I'm very well aware that I have relationships in my life that are just hard and complex. But I also just feel like doing this work has allowed me to improve my relationship so much. And I feel like I do have a lot of tools and insights and perspective shifts that can make all of the difference. Okay. So just keep an open mind. And I want to invite you to recognize that you're going to hear something today that is going to help you. And you're going to hear what you need to hear today to allow you to find what you're looking for in your relationships. Okay, I'm in the Q&A box. Got a hair trying to come into my mouth. Let's read here. Okay, someone says, I struggle with positive interpreting my husband, especially when there's things that he does that really is stressful or hurtful. And I've made a habit of assuming negatively. Yeah, okay. Totally normal. And that's something that I actually even have that as one of my bullet points today. Like a lot of the times in our relationships, we just assume we know everything there is to know about that person. And I think that's really easy in a marriage relationship. It's just like, dude, I know. I've been with you a hot second. This is always how you respond. This is always what you do. So it's really easy to just assume that we know everything. And so we're going to talk a little bit later about introducing curiosity and fascination into your marriage to kind of combat that. But today, friend, as we're talking, I want you to think about what I'm sharing within using that context of your problem. Like just knowing, okay, this is my struggle. I struggle to interpret what my husband is saying in a positive light. I always assume the negative. So just know that and take that through and see the things that you can apply to that. Another participant says, I'm pretending to like my mother-in-law. Now that my kids are older, she just keeps on judging me and how I parent. Awesome. That sounds fun. Okay, we can talk about that as well. And in a little bit, we'll open it up and we can even coach directly on that. But thank you guys for sharing these struggles. All right. So first, let's just talk about a few misconceptions that I think exist when it comes to struggles. One of these things, we tend to think that, okay, and this is within marriage. This one is within marriage, but you can apply this to a different relationship. You can apply this to mother-in-law. But sometimes in our marriage, we think, okay, if I married the right person at the right time in the right place, which a lot of the times we do think that we did, we're like, yeah, it was the right person. It was the right timing. It was the right place for me. We tend to think that because we did those things right, we shouldn't struggle, or we shouldn't struggle to the degree that we are. So we start to question when there comes a lot of struggle into our relationship, we start to think, oh my gosh, maybe this wasn't the right person. Maybe I did marry the wrong person. Maybe I made a huge mistake. I've had several of my clients tell me that they're just like, dude, I do not want to say this out loud, but I married the wrong guy. Right. And it's like, we all tend to think things sometimes that we're like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I'm thinking that. But just know that just because it's the right person at the right time at the right place doesn't mean that you're going to be free from struggle. Okay. So that's a misconception that I just want to obliterate. You're going to struggle regardless, because anytime you bring two humans together to make a go at life, there's going to be clashes. There's going to be tension. There's going to be struggle. That's inevitable. And I just think that is in general. I think all of the relationships that we have, struggle always comes. Now, I do think I can think of a relationship. For example, my little sister is my best friend in the entire world. I'm very close to her, and my relationship with her is just pretty easy. Okay. We're similar. It's easy for us to be vulnerable with each other and be real and talk about what's going on. We just have a great time together. Like we're just obsessed with each other and we love being together. That does not mean there has not been times or situations where I've needed to say when there has been a struggle, but because of her and how I love her and how I feel about her, that's given me the courage to say something because I want the relationship to continue to be an amazing relationship in my life. But I also recognize the relationship I have with her is great because we both put a lot of effort into it, right? So no relationship is amazing just because it is, right? If you have an amazing relationship, it's because of the effort and the commitment that you're putting into it. But I also do just want to say, I think there are certain relationships in our life that are just a lot easier than others. I will give you that. I think that's normal. There's, like I said, that relationship with my sister really is just an easy relationship. And then I have other relationships in my life that I would not deem as easy, but that doesn't mean they're bad or they're not important. Okay, let me pop back in here in the Q&A. Let's see what's happening. Okay. Someone says, my partner has been the breadwinner since we got married. Now he wants me to get a job to pay my part. I'm really struggling with this. Okay. Someone says, I think that I wake up with the thought every morning that I married the wrong person and I start crying. What if the other person doesn't want to put any effort? Okay, amazing. Okay. I promise you we're going to cover all of these things. I'm going to come back to this so we can open it up into coaching. So hang on with me for just a minute. I love what you're putting in here and I think it's all super valid. Okay, another misconception that we have is that when we are struggling, we make it mean something about ourselves. So if there's a struggle in a marriage, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm not a good spouse. Or like we just talked about, they aren't a good spouse. They're the wrong person. Maybe you struggle in like a parent-child relationship and you think, dude, I'm just not the right mom for this kid. I'm not a good enough mom. Maybe it's a struggle with an employer. And again, we make it mean like I'm not good or I'm not enough for this because all of this struggle. Okay. Other times we can make struggle mean that we aren't compatible or we're not a good team or it's not the right fit. And isn't that just interesting that we equate, we're just like struggle equals bad, struggle equals not good, struggle equals give up, surrender, quit. And I just hope by the end of today that we can kind of reframe the way that we look about the way we think and perceive struggle. Because what if on the opposite end, we just expected struggle? And what if we didn't make struggle mean that we were bad or we were failing or we were deficient in something? I think that would change a lot of the ways in which we respond. Okay. So one of the tools that I want to first give you, so strap on your belt, I'm going to give you some tools. One of the first ones is to understand what you're making the struggle mean. So I want you to identify what your struggle is. So I'm going to pop back here in the Q&A to give some examples. So the one that's saying like, okay, my struggle is I think I married the wrong person. Let's take that, for example. If that's what you feel like you're struggling with right now, the first thing I want you to do is I want you to understand that. Okay. Sometimes we feel shame or we're embarrassed that we think something like that or we feel that way. And so we just try to bury it and hide it and we try to not think about it or we avoid it, whatever it is. I want to invite you to just like pull that bad boy up, set it on the table and look at it and understand it and examine it and try to get familiar and curious with, what is this about for me? Okay. And within that, you want to ask yourself, what am I making it mean that I think I married the wrong person? What do you make that mean about yourself, right? When you think these thoughts. Another example is just someone saying, okay, the struggle is my husband doesn't want to put any effort into the relationship. Okay, what are you making that mean about yourself? Okay, so the first step to unpacking some of these struggles and making it less painful for ourselves is to first look at it and understand it instead of avoiding it. My watch is like, time to move. All right. So another way you can think of this is like, what's the story that I'm telling myself around this? Okay. But you've got to first understand you and your feelings first regarding the struggle. Okay. I'll give an example. This is probably about a month ago. I was just being off in my relationship. Like I just noticed with Devin, I was just kind of off. I was short with him. I didn't really talk to him. I wasn't very open. I was just acting weird. And I honestly, it wasn't about Devin. Like I was like, I'm not mad at you. This isn't really about you. I just felt off. And so I finally sat down and I was just like, baby girl, what is going on? And I sat with myself and I realized really what was going on for me is I was devastated and hurt about getting ready to send my baby to kindergarten. Okay. So this actually had nothing really to do with Devin, but underlying what was going on under here was I was heartbroken and devastated and afraid to send my baby to full-time school. And that was bleeding into everything else I was doing. And that was manifesting itself in different relationships that I had. So that's what I'm talking about. I just want you to take a second to like give yourself a pause, give yourself a timeout, and understand you and your feelings first. Does that make sense? Okay. And then something along those lines, kind of the second step is just identifying what the feeling is. Like in that example, it was important for me to identify, like, oh, I feel heartbroken. And then it was like, okay, why? Like, why are we feeling heartbroken? What's going on for us? Okay. So tool number one, understand you and your feelings first. Because sometimes our reaction is we want to take it out on the other person. We want to blame them. We want to get upset. We want to argue, whatever our thing is. And it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Before we do that, let's get really clear on what's going on for us. And that's just what we call emotional maturity. Like that's super responsible as an adult emotionally to understand you and your feelings first before you like open it up to be like, hey, can we talk about this thing? Okay. So two, identifying what those feelings are and trying to understand what the underlying thing is, where they're coming from. Another tool that you can just implement is talking about it. Being honest and open about your struggle, because this can be a really hard thing to do. We feel like we just want to keep those things to ourselves, or I tend to just think, dude, I can just handle this. It'll be okay. Like I'm an independent person and I'm just like, dude, I got this. Like it'll be fine. It'll work itself out. But every time we do that, I think we actually miss out on connection and growth and just like better companionship, no matter who that person, whatever the relationship is. So just remember that you can talk about it. You can put it out there, especially in marriage, like break the ice, say something. This happened like 2 weeks ago in my marriage. Things were just weird between me and Devin. I was mad at him. There was like a couple offenses in my mind of things that he had done that I was ticked about. And then we were just super off. And for several days, we were just off and we were acting just like roommates and kind of ignoring each other. It was awesome. And then finally, he was just like, hey. I was like, hi. He's like, so this is weird. I was like, yeah, it really is. And so sometimes just being able to be like, dude, this is weird. This is feeling sucky. What's going on? Just like the initial break the ice can then open up the conversation to be like, okay, this is how I'm feeling. This is why I'm feeling that way. This is what I'm thinking. But you're way more empowered in that conversation if you first can understand you and what's going on. Because if you don't do that, a lot of the times it can turn into a blame fest because we're thinking our feelings or our experience is that person's fault. And that's not generally, I mean, helpful. Okay. The fourth tool I want to invite you guys to do is slip into their shoes. So whether it's your mother-in-law or it's your partner, just like, let's pull back up here another example. What if the other person doesn't want to put any effort into the relationship? So let's slip into that person's shoes. Why? What is it that would cause someone to not want to put any effort into a relationship that probably at some point they were passionate about? Like what might be going on for that person? Okay. What is going on for them? What is it like to be that person right now? Your mother-in-law that's judging you for the way that you parent. What's going on for mother-in-law? Why might she be doing that? What might she be feeling? And another thing you can do, you can ask them, right? Because we don't know. Sometimes it can be helpful to sit here and take into consideration all the things. And that can be easier like in a marriage or with a child or with someone that you actually live with, right? Sometimes when I'm upset with my husband or with my child, I can look around and be like, oh, but you know what? She's in school full time every day now. And that's a big, huge change. She doesn't really get a lot of time to just play and chill and hang out anymore. No wonder she's acting so emotional and very upset all the time, right? Like those when you can look around for context and try to figure out, oh, this person has a lot going on. Maybe that's contributing to this issue. Then you can just ask them, hey, what's it like to be you right now? Tell me everything. What's going on for you? I've noticed that it seems like you don't really want to put any effort into us anymore, and I'm just worried about you. Are you okay? Right? So seek to understand this person instead of judging them and assuming that you know all the things. So just like our first friend said, you scroll back up here. I struggle with positive interpretation. Right. So you're always assuming negative about him. So instead, so a couple things you can do in that scenario, just like we're talking about, is ask yourself, what's it like to be them right now? Why would they be saying this thing, or why would they be talking about it in this way? Why am I judging them? Instead of judging them, because judgment always just feels bad. It feels justified and it feels important. It feels like a vital thing we need to do. But once we take a step back, we're like, I feel kind of crummy. So instead, it's just like, how can I be curious about what's going on here? How can I replace my I know it, I know all the things, I assume I know everything about you with curiosity and fascination? Does that make sense? All right, so let's dive into some of these. So with that, okay, so friend that struggles with positive interpretation of your husband, I'm talking to you. Especially when there's things that he does that are really stressful or hurtful, I've made a habit of assuming negatively. Okay, what I want to ask you is, who does that affect and who does that hurt? What's the effect of you always assuming negative things about him? I highly doubt that that feels good. And I know that because I tend to do the same thing, right? It's just like, hey, I know you. I know all about this. This isn't that hard, whatever it is. But anytime that you are stuck in this cycle of just assuming the worst and assuming negatively, doesn't that feel crappy? And doesn't that inhibit your ability to show up from a place of love and compassion and curiosity? I would say yes. And then there's probably not a lot of connection happening. So maybe just ask yourself, why am I choosing to always assume the worst? Because I know it doesn't always necessarily feel like a choice, but I promise you it is a conscious choice you're making. And the good news is there are just sentences in your brain that feel really important to you that cause you to engage in this behavior. So you want to sit with yourself and understand, why do I do this? But you've got to be curious with yourself. If you're going to judge yourself, it's not going to be very effective. So you just want to ask yourself in an air of like, I'm a scientist, I have a lab coat on, and I have a clipboard, and I'm just trying to understand myself a little better. Why do I do this? Why do I always assume the worst? Well, where is this coming from? What else is available to me? Why do I keep choosing to do this? And noticing the effect it has on you. Okay. Our next friend says, I'm pretending to like my mother-in-law. Now that my kids are older, she just keeps on judging me and how I parent. Why are we pretending? Why are we pretending to like her? Why don't we just like her for real? Do you know that's available to you? You could just choose to love mother-in-law. Do you know who that would benefit? You. And possibly mother-in-law. And possibly your children. But like, it's essentially, primarily, it's going to benefit you. And then it's just this gorgeous ripple effect. But just ask yourself that. Why am I pretending to like her? What's that about? And then you're saying, now that my kids are older, she just keeps judging me and how I parent. Why is that a problem? Why is it a problem for you that she's judging you on how you parent? Think about that. Think about what the worst thing is about her judging you. Because I promise you, you're going to find just judgments of her. You're doing the exact same thing. You're judging her, right? Relationships are just mirrors. We get ticked at this person for doing this thing, but if we look in the mirror long enough, we're like, we're doing that. Okay. Someone says, my partner has been the breadwinner since we got married. Now he wants me to get a job to pay my part. I'm really struggling with this. Okay. Why are we struggling? So this is exactly what I'm talking about. I want you to understand you and your feelings first about this, because the gut reaction, the initial thing that we're going to want to do is be like, what? Like we're upset, whatever it is that you're feeling about this. And we want to point the finger of blame. Like, this is your fault and I can't believe you and why, you know. But if you can take a step back, and those feelings and those thoughts are valid, you guys. What you think and what you feel is totally valid. I just want you to recognize that it just may not be serving you, and it may be hindering you from experiencing more love and peace and connection and joy that's totally on the table for you to claim. But as long as we stay in this place, that's not going to seem available to you. So what you think, how you feel, totally valid. But I think we get to a point where we're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to feel this way anymore. I don't want to be stuck here anymore. And we think the only way to get out of it is for the other person to change, for the other person to say sorry, for the other person to be different. And if we're sitting around waiting for that person to change in order for us to feel better, we will probably die sitting around waiting for them to change for us to feel better. And that's probably not the kind of life that we're super interested in. So instead, it's just being like, okay, how can I manage my emotions? How can I take 100% responsibility for myself and how I feel? And can I really understand what I'm making all of this mean for me? And who do I want to be? How do I want to show up in this situation? Does that make sense? So with the breadwinner job thing, just start by understanding like what you are feeling and what you're thinking and what are you making it mean that he wants you to get a job now. Start there. Okay. Someone said, okay, I think this is when I was talking about the first kind of misconception of like, oh, I married the wrong person. And someone said, I think that I wake up with that thought every morning that I married the wrong person and I start crying. Why are you thinking that? Why are you thinking that you married the wrong person? Why does that feel important? Why does it feel true? So again, I think this is such gorgeous and important work to do. And I want to acknowledge that I know it can feel really scary. It can feel so scary sometimes to confront these things in ourselves. But I think it's also the catalyst that gives us the opportunity to change and to feel better and to be more empowered. And we don't have to change the other person, you know? So I want you to muster up as much compassion and grace and self-love for you. And then ask yourself, oh, baby girl, why are we thinking that? Like, imagine yourself as your very best friend, or imagine someone that you're really close to and it's easy for you to talk to. Okay. And that person came to you and they were just like, oh my gosh, I think I married the wrong person. What would you say to them? You would probably be like, oh, I mean, tell me more. Why are you thinking that? Right? Like, you want to be curious with yourself and you want to avoid judging it, because the second you start to judge it, you're going to tailspin and it's not going to move you any closer to understanding and like being able to see the other options that you have out of the whole. So just start there. Why are you thinking that you married the wrong person? And I want to tell you something right now. You think that's true. You think it's a fact. The good news is it's just a thought. It's just a sentence in your brain that seems true, that you are believing, but it's just a thought. And then you can ask yourself, okay, when you think that you married the wrong person, how does that make you feel? When you feel that way, how do you act? And when you're acting that way, what results do you get? Right? Because the fact of your story is the person that's your spouse. Like, this is my spouse. This is the person I married. So that person isn't what's making you feel bad or alone or lost or hurt, right? It's neutral. They're just the person. But for some reason, your thought about that person is, I married the wrong person. So it's that thought, it's that sentence in your brain that's causing you to feel whatever it is that whatever emotions you feel when you think you married the wrong person. That thought alone is responsible for those feelings. But then just recognizing, oh, and when I feel those emotions, I do these things and I get these results because of that. When you can take a look at that, then you can see, oh, I'm creating this. It's not that the person is wrong. I'm just choosing to believe that the person is wrong. And because of that, this is what's happening. So I'd love to hear more from you. So come back into the Q&A and tell me, how do you feel when you think you married the wrong person? Okay. And along those lines, as I keep chatting, I want you to answer, how does that thought make you feel? When you feel that emotion, what do you do? What don't you do? And then we'll kind of take a look at the results. Okay. So we'll come back to you. Okay. Another one of our friends said, what if the other person does not want to put any effort into the relationship. You get to ask yourself, is this a relationship I want to be a part of? I think we forget sometimes that we have that agency, that none of us are stuck. None of us have to stay. If you are in a relationship, it's because you want to be there, right? You could always leave. You could always get out of it. No one's making you stay. So if that's the question, what if the other person doesn't want to put any effort? You can ask yourself, okay, so is this a relationship that I want to be in? And then just like we talked a little bit at the beginning about, you can try to tap into, I wonder why that is. Or why are you thinking that the person doesn't want to put any effort into the relationship? What makes you think that? And then when you're thinking, and that too is just a thought. This person doesn't want to put any effort into this relationship. Again, you answer me that. When you think that, how does that feel? When you feel that emotion, how do you act? How are you showing up in the relationship? Because that's also the beautiful part about relationships. Yeah, they're absolutely two-sided. But you get to ask yourself, okay, this is what's happening. It's seeming like this person doesn't want to put any effort into the relationship. But who do I want to be? How do I want to show up here? How do I want to feel? Okay, our next friend says, I've lost connection with my husband. Any tips on how to reconnect? I'm so sad. I don't know what can make me happy. All right. So start with where you are. Okay. I want you to think about and answer, why do you feel so sad? Okay. So when we talked about like tools that you can use, you want to understand your emotion. Right now, you probably think you're sad because you're not connected to your husband. Or maybe you think you're sad because of your husband. But take an honest look at that. When I feel sad, why is that? What is it that's causing me to be sad? What's the sentence in my brain that is triggering sadness in my body? And then even you just saying, I don't know what can make me happy. That's not true. You do know. But for right now, maybe you're just choosing sad. There's nothing wrong with that. Feeling sad is part of being a human being, right? But I just want you to recognize that you do have more control over this than you think. And even this first sentence that you present with, I've lost connection with my husband. What does that mean? Like if I were just coaching you one-on-one, if you were my client, I'd be like, okay, tell me everything about that. Like, I don't understand that sentence. What do you mean? What does it look like when you lose connection? How do you know you've lost connection with your husband? Tell me more. So you want to understand for yourself, what is that about? How do you know that that's happening? Why do you think it's happened? When you feel sad, maybe you feel sad probably because of that thought. I've lost connection with my husband. Makes me feel sad. When you feel sad, how do you act? So I want all of you to respond to me with these things. So with the initial prompt, I don't know what to call it. You know what I'm saying? With the initial thing that you wrote in, then answer me. When you think that thing, how does it make you feel? When you feel those feelings, how do you act? And then we'll explore, when we're acting that way, what does it actually create for us? What do we get? Does that make sense? If I've lost connection with my husband is something that you're thinking right now. That again, that's very valid for you and that's very real. But you can get some traction around it if you can understand it, because sometimes we're just like, I've lost connection and I don't know what I'm going to do. And it feels so important to sit and worry about that. But worry tends to just pull us down deeper and deeper into more worry, more overwhelm. And then we just kind of throw up our hands and we don't really do anything. So let's try to get you to a place where you can be curious. Like, okay, what's going on? How can I respond to this? What control do I have in this situation? Okay. Okay. I love all of this participation. Y'all are the best. Keep it coming. I'm just gonna clear these so I know. Okay. Will it still let me see these? Oh, here we go. So I'm just gonna move these so I know when someone puts in something new. Okay, gorgeous. Okay. So now let's talk about perspectives and frameworks that you can introduce that may help you around the way that you see struggle. Okay. One of those I guess this is a perspective, maybe a perspective you can adopt is every relationship struggles. Sometimes we think our relationship is the only one that's struggling. And so then we put more judgment and pile more pain on top of that. And that's what's interesting. So just like some of you have talked about, so you have the struggle of like, okay, my husband wants me to get a job now. And that's the struggle. Or I'm pretending to like my mother-in-law. She's always judging me. This is like the struggle. And then naturally and always, we're going to judge that thing. We're going to make it mean things. We pile on more negative emotion. We pile on more struggle to the initial struggle. So then we're just covered in struggle. And it feels like it's just like we're just consumed by struggle and we can't see any way out of it. Right. So a lot of these tools are just to help you deal with all the crap you've piled on top of the initial struggle. Right. Because we can't control people. If your mother-in-law judges you, she might judge you forever. And you can't change her, but you do get to decide, how am I going to respond and how am I going to show up and how am I going to choose to think about mother-in-law? And when you can do that, that totally releases all of the negative junk that's floating around right here. Because if we have control of that and we can see this struggle, do you like how I'm using my arm as struggle? If we can reframe how we see the initial struggle, it changes all of that, right? So that's a perspective that's totally available to you to adopt. Every relationship struggles. Every human that's trying to get along with another human struggles. It's hard. It's messy. It's complex. There's not easy answers all the time, right? There's not this perfect, like, here you go. My clients say that all the time. Like, Heather, please just tell me what to do. I'm like, I have no idea what you should do. We just want to guide. We want to read a book that's like, step 1, do this, step 2, right? But it's not, humans aren't that simple. It's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be complicated. But if you can accept that, if you're just like, oh yeah. And I think too, it's helpful to remember, like, it's not always going to be like this. Like, I think sometimes too, like, my husband's in school right now. He's getting a PhD. He just started year 3. And I'm just like, I'm so over it. It's so hard. It's so complicated. He's always discouraged and full of doubt. And I'm just like, I freaking hate your school. I want it to die. I want it to be over. But it's helpful for me to be like, Heather, you know what? PhD school isn't going to last forever. It's going to take 5 years. We can get through this. We can grow through this. We can use this thing that is hard to bond us closer together. But it's helpful sometimes to just remind yourself. Sometimes we're just in phases that are more difficult. Maybe that phase is having little kids at home, or maybe it's being the main breadwinner, or being the maid. Maybe you feel like you're the maid and that's the hard phase you're in. But it's helpful to remember, like, hey, it's not going to be like this forever. And how I feel right now, I don't have to feel this way forever because I'm in charge of my feelings. I'm in charge of my experience. So what can I do to allow myself to feel better, even though we're in PhD school, and even though my husband wants me to get a job, and even though my mother-in-law is judging me? How can I still show up for me and feel good about me? Okay, one of the participants says, please work on that book. I'll crowdfund for you. Done. I wish if I could write a book that was just like, here's what you do. Girl, I would write it up. Love it. Okay, where are we? Oh yeah, so just once you can accept that, it's just like, oh yeah, this relationship is going to struggle. That's inevitable. I feel like once you can accept that, you kind of end the war with yourself, and then you find that you have more focus and energy into being able to put that into the relationship instead of always just being deflated by the struggles. No one likes to struggle, right? It's not like we're like, yas, lit. I love this. No, said no one ever. But when you can see struggle and just be like, yep, sounds about right. Looks like it's struggle time. If you can just accept it as like, oh yeah, This is just going to be something that's here because I'm in a relationship with a person and we're on planet Earth. All of a sudden you have more energy and focus into thinking about, well, what do I want to think? And what am I making this mean? And how do I want to show up? And how do I want to feel about the person? Did you know you get to decide that? Regardless of how a human being acts, you just get to decide how you want to feel about them. It's amazing. So empowering. Okay, a new perspective you can adopt is that just acceptance for where you are right now and hope for the future of your relationship. And I can hear some of you like, but what if I just don't have any hope? What if things from where I'm at seem so bleak and seem so daunting and seem so impossible? What can I do? And I would say the first thing to do is connect with you. Me and my coach were talking about this yesterday. Like, so often when we feel disconnect or we're struggling in a relationship with someone else, most likely it's because we've disconnected from ourselves first. And that's really good news. You don't need another person to feel better because you can just first work on, okay, my connection with myself. If I want to feel hope, what is it that is in my control today that could allow me to feel a little bit of hope, regardless of what this person is doing or regardless of what's going to happen for this relationship in the future? How can I allow myself to feel some hope today? There's a phrase that they use in coaching land. Some people love it and it helps them. Some people don't love it and it doesn't help them. So you get to just take it with a grain of salt. You can try it on. But if you adopt the phrase that, listen, nothing has gone wrong here, right? Versus assuming, oh my gosh, something has gone wrong here. I'm wrong. The person is wrong. This relationship is wrong. What if it's just like, yeah, nothing has gone wrong here. Welcome to Relationships 101, where there's tons of struggle. That might help you not feel so much judgment and so much shame, but it might help you to access acceptance if you can just see like, yeah, it was just always going to go this way. It was always going to be complex. It was always going to be difficult. This is what's happening. Now, who do I want to be? How do I want to respond? Okay. And another perspective that I just love and that one that really helps me is, you know what? All this relationship needs is some effort and some understanding. I actually like to flip that. All this relationship needs is some understanding and then a little bit of effort. And again, first, I have to understand me. I have to understand what I'm feeling, why I'm feeling that way. Then what am I feeling about the other person? Why am I feeling that way about the other person? So that understanding in and of itself takes some intention. But I think when you do that work, it's way easier to access compassion because you're like, oh, turns out they have some things going on. Turns out they're human too. Turns out I have some things going on. And that can help you to be compassionate for yourself. But I love using that phrase as just kind of like a guiding star in my relationships because sometimes my head is just like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? This is horrible and I don't know how to fix this. And I want to freak out. And I'm just like, hey, listen, all this needs right now is a little bit of understanding, just like a little bit. How much understanding do you think you can access in the next 5 minutes? Let's just work on that and then you're done for the day, right? Like, and then all it needs is a little bit of effort. Maybe that effort looks like saying, hey, I feel super off, or I've been really worried about you. Are you okay? Maybe that effort looks like, hey, you know what? I'm not gonna keep saying yes to this because it's not good for me. I'm gonna start being honest. So it might look different for everyone, but I love that. I love the idea too that there's always like resolution or peace or better connection is always available, even if the other person doesn't want that, because you can create that experience for yourself. Does that make sense? Okay, let me pop in the Q&A. Okay, love it. Oh. Okay, now we're going to talk kind of frameworks. And I like seeing, I don't even know if that's true, but I legit just see kind of like a box, like a framework, a thing that you can build and then kind of build off of, right? So I love to think this, my brother and I were talking about this the other day, that every person really is trying their best. And here's the tea. Sometimes we just think people's best sucks, right? But I really do believe that because I believe that for myself. Like, you know what? On any given day, I'm just giving what is available for me to give. And sometimes you might look at it and think it's pathetic. But then when you look back and you're like, oh, well, I got this amount of sleep and I'm dealing with this thing. And this thing is happening in my body and this thing is going on at work and this is being required of me at church, whatever. When you can zoom out and like see all that's happening for one person, it's like, oh, yeah, that's a lot. They are doing their best. But I don't think there's ever any harm in believing that every person is doing the best that they can do at that given moment. And sometimes when I say sometimes, I mean most of the times, we just want it to be better. We want it to be different. We want it to be more. We want it to be less. We're always just chasing a feeling. We want to control people. We want people to act certain ways because we're convinced if they did act that way, then we would feel great and we would get to feel comfortable and we would get to feel happy and confident. That's such an impossible way to go about it. People just get to be who they are, and then you get to craft and create for yourself how you want to feel and how you want to show up and what kind of experience you want to have, regardless of the humans and how they're behaving around you. And that's just the best news ever. So if you just believe, everyone is trying their best right now. You know how it is to be a human. You know it's not a cakewalk. Cut them some slack. Stop being so hard. Stop being so judgmental of them. Stop being so judgmental of you. How might that affect your relationships? Okay. The next framework that I think is really beneficial is the framework of like, we're figuring this out. There's just that phrase, or we tend to think this of the family that's in front of us at church, sitting on the pew, and they're all reverent, pretty, and put together, or that person on social media that always has perfect posts, and their relationship just seems like something from a Nicholas Sparks movie. We tend to think that, oh my gosh, they have it figured out. That family, that couple, that person, that leader, that entrepreneur, that employer, they've got it going on. They have it all figured out. But no one does. The truth is, we are figuring, ing is happening, ongoing process. We're figuring it out. And I love that framework for every relationship in my life. Because relationships too, they're evolving and they're changing and circumstances happen. Things come, things go. So if it's just like, hey, like we're figuring this out, and then you can look back at all the things you already have figured out. It's like, dude, I was telling that with a client last night that's struggling to move on from something. And it's like, but look at all the things. Look at all the progress you've made. Look at everything you guys have done together, everything you have overcome. You can use that as fuel to empower you that, hey, we can keep doing it. We can keep figuring it out. Okay, I'm going to pop in the Q&A. We'll come back to some framework. Someone says, when I can remind myself that my husband's reactions are always about him and not me, it makes it way easier to try to understand. Yes. Amen. Do you guys know that that's true? I mean, think about it for yourself. Anytime you're acting, anytime we take action or we don't, we're doing that from an emotion that was created in our body by a sentence in our brain. So anytime someone reacts to something, it is about them. So your husband, just like from the example earlier of the husband that's like, I don't want to put effort into this anymore. That's about what husband's going through. That's not about you. Or if your wife lashes out, or your wife doesn't do this, or she does do that, it's about her. Mother-in-law judging you is about what's going on for mother-in-law. But we are always just convinced that it's about us. We make everything about us. I do this all the time. I'm just like, oh, are you acting out because you're mad at me? Or are you acting funny because I'm like, we're always making it about us. But I just love what they said. I'm going to read it again. When you can remind yourself that your husband's or your toddler or your boss or your leader, if you can remember that their reactions are always about them and not about you, it makes it way easier for you to understand. And I would offer too that it makes it way easier to feel compassion for them or try to see them in a different light. Okay. Another participant says, oh, this is our participant that's talking about losing connection. So she says, I lost connection with my husband and he does not want to hold hands or kiss anymore. We are like flatmates. I feel like I've lost him and it's making me sad. Yeah. So with all of this, you can put all of, I mean, you're doing a great job because you're doing it right now, but get all these sentences out of you. I've lost connection with my husband. He does not want to hold hands or kiss anymore. We're like flatmates. I feel like I've lost him. Losing him is making me sad. Like if you get all of these things out and then try to understand. I mean, you want to understand. I mean, I know that you're saying that you're feeling sad, but take it even another level and be like, okay, what am I making all of this stuff mean? Right? So when you can get those sentences out, what am I making it mean that we've lost connection? And so you're obviously, I think I had asked you that question, like, what does connection mean? So for connection for you is obviously like holding hands and kissing, probably like chatting, communicating, doing things together, feeling like you're on the same page. So maybe too, you can even take some time to grieve and feel your emotions. Like if you feel sad about it, take some time to just feel sadness and let it be there. And then you can ask yourself, okay, like, why am I feeling this? What's going on for me? And then two, you just get to ask yourself, like, what do I want to do? Like, if you feel like you've lost connection with your husband, there's several things you can do. You can be thinking about, okay, like, what's going on for him? Why is he not wanting these things that he used to want anymore? And then just like our other friend reminded us, just barely him not wanting to kiss you or hold hands. It's not about you. It's about him. His reactions are about something that's going on for him. So if you can access that part that's trying to be understanding and compassionate of him, that might give you some more insight. Then also you just get to decide, okay, if I want to feel connection in this relationship, how might I go about doing that? Even though it seems like he doesn't right now. Does that make sense? Okay, another friend says, everyone tells me to have me time and to not think about my partner. But my problem is that I've always put them first. I have no idea of what makes me happy. Okay. That's so interesting. So you can just even ask yourself, some of this is just programming and like expectations. And sometimes we just think, oh, when I become, a partner to someone, then that means that I have to give them all of me. And when I become a partner, you put expectations on yourself for what you think that means, and then you're going to try to show up in that way. So you can just ask yourself, like, let's just be curious, like, why have I always put him first? And what does putting him first mean? And the other thing is you might just think that that's really noble, that that's what you're supposed to do. That's what a great partner does. And you can just kind of deconstruct that and take a look at it and see just kind of where you're operating from, because maybe you are operating from this place of like, well, that's what you're supposed to do. Like that's what good partners do. But essentially it's looking like that's her. To ask yourself that, like, what does putting him first mean? And then ask yourself, why? Excuse me, why have I been doing that? And then just see what comes up for you. And you guys, when you're doing this work, like I just have a Google Doc where I type because it hurts my hand. I get writer's cramp and I feel like my hand can't move as fast as my brain. So I just have a running document of hundreds of pages where I just vomit all the things. So answer those questions. And sometimes you'll be sitting there and your brain will be like, I don't know. I don't know why I've been doing that. That's just the way I do it. Listen, I don't know is a total just like party crasher. So if your brain's like, I don't know, you're just like, no, listen. We're just going to guess. Just take your best guess as to why you've been putting him first all of this time. What do you think it's about? You don't have to be right. You don't need a right answer. Just allow yourself some freedom to guess. And when you tell your brain that you're like, oh no, we do know the answer is in here somewhere. Let's just keep trying to carve it out. Your brain will keep working for you to find a solution. Whereas when you say, I don't know, it's like pulling the red chip on a treadmill. When you're running and you accidentally hit the chip or something happens, you pull it and it comes to like a screeching halt. It's exactly what I don't know is in your brain. So you do know the answer is inside of you. Just give yourself freedom and a space to allow yourself to guess and allow yourself to come up with some sort of answer. And then when you're saying, I have no idea of what makes me happy, that's not true either. And how exciting for you that you get to start figuring out what does make you happy. So that might be something that's really fun. Make it fun. Get your favorite drink, go to a place that you love, whether that's a cozy spot on your couch or the local library, whatever it is. Set an intentional time to sit down and be like, okay, what makes us happy? If you could have anything in the world or you could be anywhere that you want to be, what would make you happy? But essentially, friends, what makes us happy is what we think. I mean, I think about this all the time. I think this is a great example. Think about celebrities that we could argue have everything. They have perfect bodies and perfect faces and personal trainers and chefs and tons of money and an amazing mansion and all these great cars and these incredible movies that we all love to sit and watch. It's easy to look at them and be like, oh, they're probably so happy. And then you see all the time that celebrities are in rehab or they're going through a divorce, or some of them end up taking their own lives, like all of these really hard, horrible things. And we're like, but I thought they were happy because of what they have. We're happy because of what we think about what we do or we don't have. Okay. So start there, my friend. Just be willing to do a little bit of work. And you can message me if you want to message me on Instagram, Heather Flake Coaching, or email me, Heather Flake Coaching. I have kind of a fun little worksheet about wants and something that might help you. So you can hit me up if you want that. Okay. Okay, another attendee says, I think kind of piggybacking off of this, I put my husband first as well because I want to make him happy and think he'll love me more. Yeah. So again, do you see that you're putting husband first and you're trying to do all these things to make husband happy so that he'll love you so that you can feel a certain way. You're trying to manipulate the situation. You're trying to do things to make your husband love you because you think if he loves you, that will allow you to feel something that you want to feel. Does that make sense? But you can't make anybody love you and you can't make anybody happy. It's like literally impossible. So I think that's actually a really gorgeous thing that you just uncovered, like a gorgeous truth bomb. Like, oh, I'm putting my husband first because I think if I do that, it will make him happy and then he will love me more. You can't make someone happy and you can't make someone love you. So you just, again, friend, you just get to take a step back and be like, okay, you already understand why you're doing it. Your motives are to make him feel something so that you can feel something. So instead, you can ask yourself, like, how do I want to feel in this relationship? Right? And what are my intentions? What are my motives? Okay, our other friend said that was talking about the me time. She says, what makes me happy? All I get is that I want my marriage back. That won't happen again because my partner has completely checked out. Okay. So again, to you, my friend, I just want to say, think about when we're in this space of like, that won't happen again because my partner's completely checked out. So it's seeming like the only way for you to be happy again is to get the marriage back that you want because you think that thing will make you happy. The only way to get it is if husband changes. Sorry, if partner does change and if they do what you think they are supposed to do in order to come back and to feel happy. And I totally get that. That's how we think. But again, that leaves you in a completely powerless place because you're sitting here waiting to feel better. And the only way you're ever going to feel better is if this person does something to affect that, right? So just take some time to think about that. And why are we choosing to think that that's not going to happen again? And why are we choosing to believe that our partner is completely checked out? And I can hear you're like, no, because it's true. And I can show you all the things. I can give you evidence, right? But I just want you to explore it and be a little curious as to why you think that is. And I want you to think about how are you contributing to this situation? What fuel are you giving to believing that it's not going to happen again and he's checked out? Because we can't control we can't change partner. But you want to think about, you just want to have total radical responsibility of yourself. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? How am I showing up? What am I creating? Me, what am I doing here? Because that is what you have control over. And again, you just get to ask yourself, these questions and you get to be honest and open about like, so why am I here? What is my purpose in being here right now? Okay, my friends, we have about 1 minute. Someone says, so this is going to be our final question. And then if any of you have to go, I know that it's time, but if any of you have to go and you have more questions, you want follow-up coaching, please reach out to me. I would love to do a free session with you to keep talking about these things and work them out. Okay. Someone says, can you talk more about that? My husband used to love me, but now he doesn't love me and says it's because I'm not the same person when we met. So I feel like I have to be the old me for him to love me. I just don't understand. Yeah, I can totally see how that would seem very confusing. And I'm sure that's putting a lot of pressure on you to act in a way that's sounding like not genuine for you anymore. But listen, your husband loving you has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with his ability to love. So if he's saying, listen, I just don't love you anymore because you're not the same person, that's about him, right? So it's not about you needing to change or you becoming the old version of yourself in order for him to love you. I think it's recognizing, hey, him not loving me is about him. And maybe it's about you taking a good look at yourself and being like, do I love me? Am I worthy of love? Because spoiler alert, you absolutely are. You're 100% lovable. All of us are. When we come to earth as those perfect little infants that are so incredibly easy to love and we all agree are 100% lovable, that doesn't change as we get older. We're all 100% lovable, but our abilities to love other people are not perfect. And people that love us are not perfect at loving us. So him not loving you doesn't actually have a thing to do with you, even though he's saying to you, hey, I don't love you anymore because you're not who you used to be. It's about him. And you get to ask yourself, so what do I want to do with this? Like husband saying, I don't love you anymore because you're different, essentially. What do you want to think about that? When you think that, how does it make you feel? When you feel that way, how do you act? When you act that way, what results are you getting? And you just get to decide, okay, with this circumstance going on and with this situation being a thing for me right now, how do I want to care for myself? How do I want to show up? What do I want to do? Okay, start there. And honestly, send me a message, reach out to me. I would love to coach you more on this. Unfortunately, we just don't have time. Okay, I want to thank all of you guys so much for coming today. This was absolutely so beneficial. This was such a joy for me to be here and to share with you all. Thank you so much for your participation, for being vulnerable and sharing what's going on for you. And I just want to leave you with the hope and the truth that struggles are inevitable, but you don't have to be defined by your struggles. And so often the struggles that we face are exasperated and become even bigger and worse because of what we're making the struggle mean. So just take some time to understand you and to understand what you're feeling, why you're feeling, what meaning you're giving to all of these things, and know that there's always a way to feel more hope, more peace, more connection, even if that is just to yourself. And I honestly would love to help you do that work. So I know there's still some things that we would love to go through and talk about. So please reach out to me. I'm on Instagram. You can send me a direct message. You can email me. I would love to give you a free session and keep coaching you and working through this. Okay. Thank you so much for coming, my friends. Oh, one last thought. He's not perfect at loving me, the person saying that gives me a feeling of relief right now. Thank you. Yes, because he's not. And none of us are. We're not perfect lovers. Okay, my friends, thank you so much for joining me today. It was beautiful to be with you. I hope to connect with you more, and we'll see you here next time. Okay, take care. Bye, you guys.